Telecommunication networks generate massive volumes of usage data every second. To turn raw usage into revenue, systems must ingest and process those streams flawlessly. At the foundation of this process is the billable item, or bit. It is the core raw material, a discrete record of usage from a contract account. But you cannot simply bill everything the moment it arrives. You need a strict control mechanism to dictate exactly when an item enters the billing funnel. That mechanism is scheduling. This block defines the core output, the billing target date. The system assigns a bill from date to every item. That logic repeats downstream, storing an invoice from date on billing documents, acting as a grouping feature for mass runs. A bill from date is never arbitrary. It is derived through strict mathematical rules applied to the exact date the billable item originated. SAP provides a simulation tool within SPRO for these complex calculations. This sandbox allows architects to test their date arithmetic without touching live data. Mastering this simulation ensures your data grouping is mathematically flawless. It is the only way to prevent cascading failures in a high-volume mass billing environment. Let's trace where these scheduling interventions actually happen inside the Convergent invoicing pipeline. This flowchart illustrates the sequence. When a billable item is created, the system determines the applicable scheduling rule. Moving to the billing phase, that calculated target date becomes a strict filter. In background processing, the system selects only qualifying items. In expert mode, you can overrule this. Once a billing document is generated, the system applies another rule to determine the invoice first date. This two-tiered sequencing separates billing from invoicing. It allows a high-volume system to summarize daily usage data incrementally and then issue a single, clean invoice at the end of the month. The mathematical engine driving this entire automated pipeline is the underlying scheduling rule. Consider a business requirement for a telecom company. They need to bill usage differently depending on whether a record originates before or after the 13th. To accomplish this, an SAP scheduling rule passes the origin date through a sequence of evaluating steps called calculation parts. The most important variable here is the date limit. This is a day-of-the-month threshold that dictates whether a specific calculation part is triggered or bypassed. For our telecom scenario, we will construct Rule 0001. We start by defining the parameters for Part 1. We set the date limit to 13, add days to 0, and assign a fixed date of the 15th. If a billable item's origin date is on or before the 13th, the system sets the target billing date to the 15th of that month. For items originating after the 13th, we configure Part 2. We set date limit 31, fixed date 15, and add 1 month. Any origin date from the 14th to the 31st is pushed to the 15th of the following month. There is one final layer of arithmetic.
What happens if the 15th lands on a Saturday, a Sunday, or a public holiday? The rule cross-references a factory calendar. By assigning factory calendar ID 01, representing standard German working days, the system knows exactly when to adjust dates to avoid weekends. These cascading parameters, limits, fixed dates, month shifts, and factory calendars, create a rigid, automated pipeline that removes all manual guesswork from high-volume billing. Theoretical logic is only as good as its execution. To validate this setup, we move to the practical simulation environment. You find this tool in Customizing under Financial Accounting, Convergent Invoicing, Basic Functions, and finally, Scheduling. To execute a logic trace, the simulation tool requires exactly 3 inputs. First, specify scheduling rule 0001. Second, input factory calendar 01. Finally, test origin date June 24. When executed, the tool calculates the target date, reveals exactly which calculation part was triggered, and flags any working day adjustments it had to make. This gives architects instant, definitive proof of their configuration logic without generating a single piece of persistent test data in the database. We command the execution of the simulation and begin tracing the logic from our baseline date. The system inputs the June 24 origin date into Rule 0001. Day 24 is evaluated against the Part 1 limit of 13. Exceeding 13, Part 1 is bypassed. Moving to Step 2, Day 24 qualifies under the Part 2 limit of 31, triggering execution. The system applies the first mathematical variable of Part 2, locking the date to the 15th of the month.
It then executes the date shift variable, adding exactly 1 month to push the baseline from June to July. We are now at July 15th. The system performs its final logic check against Factory Calendar 01. It determines that July 15th is a Sunday. The working day adjustment engages. The system pushes the target date forward to the next available working day, which is Monday, July 16th. The simulation concludes, outputting July 16, 2012 as the definitive BILL from date. The trace proves that our multi-part arithmetic correctly processed the origin date, executed the required month shift, and handled the weekend boundary flawlessly. Tracing a mid-month date confirms the math, but true validation requires testing strict date limit boundaries. To test the logic fork, we simulate origin dates 13 and 14 side by side. Day 13 triggers Part 1, routing to the 15th of this month. Meanwhile, Day 14 misses Part 1, triggers Part 2, routing to the 15th of next month. The boundary is mathematically secure. Architects must also simulate other critical edge cases, validating how the rules handle leap years, month-end crossovers, and overlapping regional holidays. Completing these checks is an absolute necessity before generating transport requests to QA or production environments. These rules operate at an immense scale. A single flaw in your date limit logic will misschedule millions of revenue documents instantly. Rigorous, proactive simulation is the bedrock of architecting a reliable, automated SAP Convergent invoicing deployment.